get my brain into gear and share my screen. So quick introduction. First of all, I'm Jane Johnston. I'm co-CEO of AphA, and I'm also on the Professional Development Committee. So I'm one of the assessors that go through all your registration.
Hi, I'm Sigal.
I've been in the NHS over 30 years. And yeah, so I'll pass you over to Sigal now, who can introduce herself, and then we'll get started.
Hi, Sigal. I work for Nottinghamshire County Council as a public health analyst. I've been a member of AphA forever, it seems, and I'm also a member of the Professional Development Committee for many years now, and I'm professionally registered. So hopefully all of you will be too soon.
Yes, absolutely. This is good, and it'll be available on the AphA website if you want to relook at it. This one or any other sessions, they're all on there, so you can go and have a look. Right, I'm going to share my screen. So I will go through the slides, and Sigal is going to be monitoring the chat for any questions that come through as we're going. And then there will be time at the end as well. Let's see. Slideshow. Okay. Are we there? Are we seeing slides now? Of course, I can't see any thumbs up or anything. I can't see. I'm assuming that you can all see slides unless somebody shouts you can't. Right, so this workshop, the Q&A workshop, we do two lots of workshops. The first one, which was last month, is really an introduction to what professional registration is about. It's an introduction to AphA and the process you go through. The purpose of this workshop is really for those of you who may have started already on the professional registration journey. The July, this month, is the window for submission. So up until the 31st of July, you are able to submit your application. So we have this workshop just really as a wash-up session for people that may have some questions prior to submission. However, some of you might not even be that far, and that's fine. Anybody is welcome on the call, on the session, just to learn as much as they can, whether they've started or not. But if you have already started, this is your opportunity for asking questions before you put that registration application in, or whether you decide, oh, I need to wait to the next application window because I'm just not there yet. So why would you become registered? It's all about demonstrating your skills, your competencies, and commitment to your career. It's also an indication. It also gives your organisation confidence in your abilities. So when they do make all those decisions based on intelligence you have produced, they have that knowledge that your skills are evidenced, are peer reviewed, and that they are taking advice from, from a good, competent professional. So it's all that indication of your competency, your ability. Now, it's nothing to do with how many degrees you've got, what your academic background is. It's not to do with what your job title is or what your current grade is. You select the level you want to go in at, regardless of all of that, as long as you are doing that evidence your competency at that level. That is all we ask. We don't need to know, if it's relevant to your grade or your job title. We don't need to know. I mean, the application does ask about academic history. We do ask a bit about that, but it's doesn't have any impact on what level you become registered at. It's all about developing you in your career. And you will have seen the latest directive out from NHSE that they ultimately want all DDAP professionals from Band 5 to be members of professional bodies such as AphA and to become professionally registered. You have to be a member of a body, a professional membership body, to go through the registration process. So AphA is obviously your natural body, your National Professional Registration Home, to be associated with, because of the alignment to data and analytics, health and care. So what you need to do, there's various different levels. The first two there, affiliate practitioner, associate practitioner, are really for people who are just coming in and not quite sure where they are. An affiliate practitioner, then it's not a full application process as the last four are. You have to write a certain number of words. I think it's about 5, and just commit to register within 2 years. So that's people that have, they're starting to build things up, and they're on the path, but they're not quite ready yet to go through the full registration process. An associate practitioner, but you still go on the professional register. An associate practitioner, likewise, you will go on the professional register. There isn't necessarily a commitment for the 2 years, because maybe you've just come into healthcare, maybe you've just come into data and analytics, and you need time to build up your evidence and your skills and your competencies. But again, it's showing that you are dedicated to your career progression. And then there are the other levels there. I know there was one of the questions that came in about selecting different levels, but we'll go through that in a bit. So you have to use the AphA Professional Registration documents. When you go onto the AphA website, and Lizzie will be kindly, hopefully, posting links in the chat. You go in there, you register with FedIP through the AphA website, and that will give you access to all the documentation where you can, make your decisions about the levels, and you have to use the application forms that are in there. If you have anything old that's a Word document, don't use it, please, because it has to go through this process to be then uploaded onto the FedIP hub. So you register on the hub through AphA, and you get access to all the documentation there. So you download the application for the level you've chosen and the reflective practice template. So there's an application form, reflective practice templates, and evidence that you need to submit. So 3 things you need to submit. We ask you to do at least 3 reflective practices. Identify 3 projects or pieces of work that you can work through as an example. The first one might be a big meaty project, and you might cover 60-70% of the standards just from that one, and the other 2 might be smaller projects. And they don't need to be projects, it could be routine work that you do. If you can show your competencies and the evidence on your skills, it doesn't have to be special project work. It could be that you do a dashboard every month or something every month routinely. So just 3 projects or pieces of work that you will build your reflective practice on. And then as you go through that, you can map to the standards to that reflective practice. And each standard needs to be evidenced. So if, for example, you pick a frailty dashboard as your piece of work, the evidence isn't the frailty dashboard. The evidence will be each standard that we ask. So there's ones on communication, collaborative working, analytical methods, how you chose your methods. That's the evidence we want. We're evidencing your skills to work through something, not just this is what I've produced. We need to see all the evidence building up and leading to that end product. If you go for re-accreditation, because once you're registered, it lasts 3 years, you can just do a re-accreditation piece. It's a lot shorter. You don't have to go through an application again, as long as you're re-accrediting at the same level. And then we only ask for 2 reflective practices then. If you are going to re-accredit at a different level, then you will need to go through and do the full application process. So this is the FedIP registration form that you will see on the hub once you've registered through the AphA website. So to decide on your level, I explained the affiliate and associate, and then you've got practitioner, senior, advanced, and leading practitioner. The standards are all actually the same in their wording about what we're looking for, whether it's communication or collaborative working, as I say, analytical methods, etc. It's the different levels are about the different levels of your accountability, your autonomy, your skill set, etc. So if you look at this table, for example, you can see a practitioner, you have a certain amount of autonomy subject to guidance and direction. Senior, you can exercise your own autonomy within limited parameters. Advanced, you've got much broader but defined parameters. And as a leading practitioner, you exercise autonomy within very broad parameters. So you can see there's a scale there. Leading practitioners tend to be more strategic level. I'm a leading practitioner. I haven't written code well, I did some couple of weeks ago and I really struggled because I hadn't done it for about 2 years and I had to dig out all my old code to remember how to do it. But the different things that you have to do, it's authority levels or whatever, and your input into the overall system. Now, one of the questions that came up on the spreadsheet was somebody said about how do I know my evidence is for advanced or leading? It's not what the evidence is, it's what you set yourself as. So you decide whether you're advanced or leading, and then you provide the appropriate evidence for that level. You have to be able to meet all the standards at that level. So if you're doing a senior practitioner application and a couple of them you think, oh, I'm at advanced practitioner level, unless you can do advanced for all of them, you have to stick with the senior practitioner. So you have to be able to meet every standard at that level. One of the things that I just thought another example I'd give there on accountability. For an advanced practitioner, it's all about managing tasks and people or maybe resources and helping, to plan and budget within the budget of your department. Whereas a leading practitioner, the accountability and responsibility might be accepting accountability for the organizational wide data and analytics functions and actually overseeing resources and holding a budget. So there's a difference there between advanced and leading. And when you go onto the website and go into the hub, you will see what those different levels are. But the actual standard, accountability and responsibility, has the same title. It's just the different levels. So you have to go through and decide where you fit. So if I just go through an overview of the standards, there's 9 actual standards, and then there's some contextual standards. So we have here applying methods. So this is all about describing a situation. So this is where your reflective practice comes in. We use the STAR technique, so situation, task, action, and results. So describe the situation, and how did you apply methods? What did you actually do? How did you choose the methods to apply to this problem? Then the second one, using methods to solve problems. So it's all about applying the appropriate methods to identify what was the problem and how did you apply the methods? What were the results of your actions? We'll go through a STAR pro forma in a minute and you'll get a little bit more idea. So organization and planning, about how you use your resources to organize and plan yourself and the project, depending on your level of responsibility and autonomy. Autonomous practice, we've discussed that a bit already. Are you just supervising yourself? Are you supervising the work of others? Are you supporting others? And that accountability and responsibility. Then communication, it's all about, again, evidencing your communication throughout this piece of work. So you see what I mean about it's not the final product isn't your evidence. Your evidence is how did you communicate? How did you, what methods did you apply? What did you use? how did you demonstrate your responsibility, your autonomy, etc. Collaborative working, evidencing you can work with colleagues. It could be meeting minutes, it could be agendas where you're named, it could be email trails, all sorts of things. Demonstrating professionalism, that has to do with the AphA Code of Conduct, which is on the website, and actually on the slide there, I think the slides get shared, there's a link to the Code of Conduct. It's all about compliance and adhering to ethical standards, carrying out your duties with integrity and diligence. I'll get through to some of the examples. So it's about maintaining high standards of professional and technical competence. So it could be, part of your evidence could be showing that you are continually doing courses to better your professional competencies. And then continued professional development, that's evidence. If you use that for your SP8, you could also use, SP just means this is senior practitioner. It'll be P8 or SP or AP or LP, but as I say, the question's the same. And we just ask for you to evidence 10 hours of CPD a month. And that could be, an hour lunch and learn session. Save your Eventbrite notification, your confirmation from Eventbrite that you attended a lunch and learn. If you go to something like HET, I think you can get a certificate that gives you 6 hours. If you've done some work, maybe some research on a piece of work within the hospital, that if you're in a hospital or whatever, it could be that somebody will do an email to say, yes, they went off and they did research on this area to help build the project, the knowledge behind the project. So all sorts of things can be used. The contextual.
Before you
Yes.
move on, can I just ask? There was a question here, which I thought others might come across as well. So maybe it's good to open it up. So the question was: there's dedicated forms for the reflective practices, but there is also a reflective practice form at the end of the application form. And the question was which one was best to use. And I've said it doesn't really matter, but I think you need to submit the reflective practices separately. Is that correct?
If you submit them all in the form, that's fine.
Okay.
I think most people find it easier to work on separate documents, but it really doesn't matter.
Okay.
As long as you use the ones that are available to you through the application process, then that's absolutely fine. But as I say, most people, in fact, I can't remember, probably about a year since I've had one where people have submitted it as part of the application. Most people will do it separately. So you don't have to do it and then copy it into the application if that's what you're thinking. No, as long as it's done, leave the ones on the application blank and send us it separately. You don't have to do both.
Yeah.
So
And there's a second question here just came in about CPD, whether it has to be solely on analytics. And my view on that is probably it can be on leadership skills or soft skills around your job as well. It does not need to be specifically tools or analytical tools or things like that. Anything to do with your job.
When you think back to the standards, demonstrating professionalism, communication, applying methodologies, organization and planning. Yeah, so it's, your CPD can be to do with any of those sort of standards. So like you say, it might be a leadership program. You might have done Prince 2 or something like that. You might have done project management, which is great evidence of CPD and organization and planning. Leadership skills might be accountability and responsibility. It could be your annual, you go through and you have to go through those incredibly long electronic things, teaching yourself on cybersecurity or whatever, it's all relevant. Anything that you use within your job is relevant to your CPD. So the contextual standards, this is it's a story. So these are the squiggly blue line, and I would challenge anyone to try and draw freehand a smoother blue line. There might be something way to do it, but no. And these are the standards: applying methods, solving problems, organization planning, etc. You're telling a story from where you started with that project right to the end, and how you continually develop yourself. Then what runs throughout is this golden thread, and these are your contextual standards. It's your understanding on the impact your role has, or this piece of work has, on healthcare, your awareness of the sectors you work within. I've lost my mouse. I don't know. I might have to plug it in. The terminology you use, and just making sure that everyone else is aware that you don't use acronyms, etc. Oh, too much. Healthcare informatics, how you work with others. So if you're a data engineer, it's how you work with your with your analytical colleagues. If you're an analyst, it's how you might interact with your warehouse developer colleagues, whatever. Information governance and GDPR. So the application form, just a very brief profile. We're just looking for a couple of paragraphs. This is not a CV. We don't want reams and reams and reams, just like a bullet point, from what your role is. If you've got any published papers, awards, present, things like that, conferences you've spoken at, then do list it. If you don't, it doesn't matter, as long as you're going to evidence your skills and competencies as you work through the standards. This is extra stuff for us, but it won't impact on how your application succeeds. Likewise with any formal qualifications. Career history, really, we want one or two bullets. Just, I was head of information, I worked for this organization, I oversaw a team, we oversaw the reporting function, and also the performance function, something like that. It doesn't have to be loads, just 2 or 3 bullets. The application form itself, there are, as you go through, you will see all the different standards there, but you don't actually write anything in the application against the standards in there. It gives you ideas, it gives you examples of the question, the sort of evidence we're looking for. And if you've done competency framework, if you've been using that yourself, then actually it also has another column that says this relates to this competency, national competency framework levels, just in case you already have some of the stuff there, to help you having to do things again. Some of the standards are people find more difficult to fit into their reflective practice, and demonstrating professionalism might be one of them. So you can use it. There's an additional information box here, and you can use that to write any commentary you want, because you haven't been able to fill it else, on the reflective practice. We'll still want evidence, but it doesn't have to be in the reflective practice. You might have done them all and think, oh God, I haven't managed to fit that one in. And demonstrating professionalism is very often the one that, gets people, because of the code of conduct. Think, how do I ever, how do I put that into my reflective practice? Some do, some don't. But if you can't, you can use the additional commentary sheet. Likewise with the contextual standards, a lot of people find it more difficult to fit these in through the reflective practice process. So we ask you to just write a brief commentary here, and there's examples. There's examples on the website of all reflective practices and application forms. So please do use that. And we don't want a lot. It says here a short commentary, and we've actually grouped it So identifying how the role impacts on patient care and well-being, demonstrating the knowledge and where you sit within health and care, employing terminology relevant to your role, and identifying a range of functions within health and care. You can do a commentary that covers all of that in one. Likewise with governance and GDPR, you can just do a commentary that covers both of those. We will still want evidence, which might be your annual GDPR compliance certificate or whatever. So they can, you can put that in there. It doesn't have to go in reflective practice if you struggle to get it in there. The reflective practice model I've discussed as situations, explain the situation and context. What was the problem? What did you do? And what was the outcome? And you have to map all these standards and contextual standards as you go through. Now, if I just show you here, this is about identifying a frailty service. So the situation, you are asked to join a newly established multidisciplinary team. So straight away, you are looking at standards. Let me get a list of standards so I can see. So SP7, that is collaborative working. You've joined a multidisciplinary. So that's straight away, you are saying SP7, and your evidence might be minutes of the meeting or an agenda or something. And here it's saying the evidence is an invite email to that meeting. C2, so they're saying that actually the contextual standards have been met through this one. So C2 is demonstrating a knowledge and awareness of where you sit in the sector. So you're part of a multidisciplinary team and you will be talking from your own role. So that, you can go through and work through, write it down as you go. So here there's things about workshops, so that's continued professional development, SP9, and the evidence that they've given for that one is a webinar invite. Now, if you go over here to actions, you can see straight away there's quite a few standards ticked off. Applying methods. You attended 2 half-day measurement courses to identify frail patients and present data in a logical setting. SP4, that is autonomous practice. You've gone off and, done this and picked it up on your own. Accountability and responsibility. And again, professional development. So there's an event booking there as evidence. So as you can see from all the red little brackets here, I would say I'm just seeing SP1, SP1, 2, SP2, SP4, 5, SP3, 6. So actually, SP7, SP9. So all apart from SP8 have actually been referred to in this one reflective practice. And SP8 you can do on the application form. We still want 3 though, 3 reflective practice, even if you've managed to fit all the standards in one. And if you just work through it as you go and fill out the evidence. So the second part of reflective practice is what went well, what went less well, what did you learn, and what would you do differently next time? We want to know this. We want to know that you are growing your skills, you're growing your understanding, that you're growing your career. So if it went wrong, we want to know, because we want to know what did you learn and what would you do differently. I mean, none of us are perfect, so don't think I can't admit that the whole project failed. Actually, you can, because it shows that you're growing as an individual, as a professional, to build on that and learn from that. And what would you do differently next time? As I say, all these are available for you to go through in more detail. Evidence we've discussed. We don't want patient identifiable information. If you're going to send us examples of SQL or Excel, screenshots is fine. We don't need the actual documents. If you send the documents, there might be some hidden tabs or hidden, patient identifiable data there, which we don't want. but a screenshot is fine to show us what methodology you used, how you presented data, etc. Agendas and minutes, you can redact to make it, keep other people's names out of it if you want. This is all about your collaboration, your communication, you're working with others. So that sort of thing works. It could be that you've received a request for some code, or you requested code yourself. So there's, again, it's about explaining and helping others, because some of that thing about accountability, autonomy, responsibility is how you help others as well and guide others through. To make sure you've got everything, we do this matrix. This is on the application form. And you can see here the 3 reflective practices. So applying methods in healthcare, we've ticked that box on all 3. And the evidence we provided, E1 and E2. You can use the same evidence for different reflective practice, for different standards. It doesn't have to be a different piece of evidence for every standard, but as long as every standard has evidence against it. So you can see here we've got E2 has been used a couple of times, E1's been used a couple of times, E7, because a lot of it is very similar. And then we just ask you to tick on your box, which standard in that reflective practice, which standard did you hit? So demonstrating professionalism, continued professional development, they haven't managed to get into the reflective practice 1 or 2, managed to do a bit of CPD in reflective practice 3, but that's fine. So this isn't in the reflective practice, but you've used that box on the application form to explain how you demonstrate professionalism. So likewise, you can see here some of the GDPR, for example, hasn't been ticked in any of reflective practices, depending on what you're working on, but you can evidence that. So E18 might be, as I say, your annual tick box exercise you have to do to say your understanding of GDPR. And then the application form itself. So that's your check to make sure. So we want an evidence, we want every single line to have something in it in the evidence provided column. Every line has to have something in it. Every cell has something in it. And every standard will have evidence in some way, application form, reflective practice, etc. Though most of them will go in the reflective practices. There's a sponsor declaration which needs to be signed off, and if your sponsor is also professionally registered, they can actually validate your evidence beforehand, which is always a bit of a relief for you, that you know it's been signed off before you hit that submit button. That's the evidence verification. I jumped ahead a slide there. How long does it take? I would dedicate a couple of days, a weekend. When we do all our exams, our school exams, our university degrees, we put loads of time into study and revision. But when we are asked to do it as a professional thing, once you are actually a professional in the workplace, people say, oh, do I have to give time to that? I think, well, you did it all through your education. It's no different. We're just asking you to dedicate. And if you take that time out and really concentrate, it doesn't have to take more than a couple of days. You just need to buckle down. I think the thing that maybe takes the longest is finding the evidence. As you go through, just make sure you keep yourself sorted, keep a folder in your document somewhere where you can just keep saving bits of evidence as you go if you think about it. Otherwise, when you go back through and then go and try and find the evidence, and it's a good idea actually through NCF, they suggest it, just reflective practice is a good way for you to continually, something you should work on throughout your career, throughout your working life, regardless of whether it's being used for professional registration. So use a couple of days there. It just explains here lots of different advice, which you will get in the slides. As I say, you might think, oh, I've got 2 weeks left to submission date. I'm not going to do it. That's fine. The next submission date is October 1st and 31st of October. Or again in January. It's a 3 monthly cycle. So just because you've gone on to the FedIP hub and registered yourself and downloaded the applications, that does not mean you are committed to doing it within that window. And if you suddenly submitted in the middle of August, then that's fine. It's done. You've ticked the box, but you won't actually, your application won't be looked at until the October window. But there's no reason why you can't get it in and just, get it out of your in tray, as it were. But if you get it in by the 31st of July, it will be assessed in the next cohort. So we will, as assessors, reach out to you when we receive your application. If we think that you are missing a piece of evidence or you haven't explained something quite well enough, we'll email you, or we'll get in touch and say, look, can we just have a Teams call? Can you just talk me through this bit? We want to get you through. We're not about being roughy tufty and failing you. We want to help you through this, and we will do everything we can to help you through this. It might take a couple of calls. you fill out the evidence matrix. It's your own aid memoir as well, just to say that I've ticked this, and yes, I've provided this evidence, and this is how I'm numbering my evidence. So yes, that is very much you, because that's what you're going to use to make sure you've completed all the tasks required of you. Any other? I'm not going to go all the way back up the chat because I assume you've been doing that as you go. Is there any other questions? Are there any other questions? Has anyone else got anything they